Good.
Got it.
Welcome to the Self-Healing Revolution, where ancient wisdom and modern science meet. I'm your host, Paige Pierman, owner of Love Yourself, an Ayurveda and integrative wellness practice based in Louisville, Kentucky. It is my hope that through this summit, you will receive tools and techniques to heal your own body by biohacking your body, mastering your mind, and elevating your soul. It took me over a decade of working with experts and professionals to begin to tap into how to heal my own life. And so I have a great appreciation for the depth and wealth of knowledge of all the 21 experts who will be speaking with you this coming week. So with that, I would like to go ahead and introduce you to Dr. Peter Swanz. He is a naturopathic physician with advanced training in classical homeopathy and nutrition. He was awarded the prestigious Daphne Blayden Award for his commitment to naturopathic medicine, academic excellence, compassion, perseverance, and a loving sense of humor. He is a fellow of the Homeopathic Association of Naturopathic Physicians, and he currently supports individuals on the journey to health through his Vital Force Naturopathy practice, integrating the best of conventional and holistic medical training. Dr. Swanz, thank you so much for joining me on the Self-Healing Revolution Summit. You were one of the early practitioners that I came to in my own healing journey, and I'm so grateful to have you join me here today.
Oh, thank you, Paige. Thanks for thinking of me and thanks for putting this together. It's a beautiful gift to put this type of information and potential for healing out to people that are looking for it.
Yeah, I mean, that was my hope. I think there's so many people that want to begin to heal naturally, and yet they don't know where to begin, for one. And there's also, I think, just possibly, and maybe you experience this in your own practice, like a general fear if they were to explore natural healing, what that might look like. Does it compete with their conventional healing? And, is it safe? Do these things come up right in your own practice? I feel that people need to feel safe and secure and have this trust in the work that we're doing.
Yeah, no, it does. I just got off the call with a potential patient who was wanting to work with me, and he was telling me with his conventional doctor, he's really afraid because he's changed up his diet and he started to see some positive shifts in his cholesterol and triglycerides and blood sugar, but his LDL was going up a little bit. And he's like, I know this doctor's going to tell me if I don't take the statin, he's going to kick me out of his practice. And I think that's a really, that's a scary place to be. And it's an unfortunate place for patients to be, and for practitioners to think that they should be dictating what patients do. Yeah.
Right. So how do you handle these concerns, right? Like, so when somebody comes to you and they're working with their conventional doctor and they're starting, like you said, like they're seeing some healing with their diet and their lifestyle, and then it's like, okay, now what? What's next? How do you work with them through these fears?
Well, I mean, I try to give the patients enough points of reference that show how their health is improving so they can take that back to the doctor and say, look, here's the things I'm doing. Here's what shifted for me. Here's how I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping better. My energy's better. My mood's better. My poops are better. Like everything's functioning better. This is good. Like, and that makes it harder for that conventional doctor to kind of argue, well, we still need to keep pushing pharmaceuticals at your symptoms. Because the symptoms are improving. But I also think patients should consider if their primary care support is working for them or not. And they may want to fire their doctor and find another doctor. The big shift that needs to happen internally is we as the consumer, the patient, need to be empowered and the captain of our own health team. And that's a shift from that old school mindset of, oh, I just do whatever my doctor tells me.
Right. I love that you wrote empowered. I believe just in my own practice that, there's this victim consciousness of this, that I don't have that power, that power's outside of myself, that I have to hear it from a doctor who tells me. But I find that actually a lot of times when people go in their own self-healing, they have a great intuition about what's possibly wrong with them, like looking at their own symptoms, like this doesn't feel right, or I'm not feeling, I may have brought this up to my doctor, and sometimes they can self-diagnose even before a lab test can show them, or maybe they haven't gotten the right lab, like take thyroid, like hypothyroid, like a lot of women, right, are having thyroid issues, and they feel a shift in their body long before the labs show
Right.
them that they have a thyroid problem. Like people have a general sense and intuition, but yet that empowerment piece is huge.
It is. And people need to understand that the labs aren't this, clear cut, black or white, definitive statement on whether you're healthy or not, because so many people will have labs that fall within the very normal, ranges and not feel well and not feel optimal in their health. And that's a unfortunate thing, because how that plays out conventionally is often, well, it must be in your head, it must be emotional, we can try an antidepressant or some anxiety medication for you, and it's a disservice. And again, it feeds right into that kind of victim thing, because you're telling this person what you're feeling and thinking isn't really what's happening, and now it's all in your head. So people kind of get stuck where they start to self-doubt themselves. And absolutely part of the holistic healing journey is starting to trust that intuition and listen to the body and connect with the symptoms, and then also really to learn how to better take care of this body that we've been gifted in this life.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So, some people may hear this and not even know what naturopathy or homeopathy is. Can you just give just for somebody hearing this the first time, they might have a sense, but they don't really know. Can you just give a quick overview
Sure.
for our listeners?
Yeah, so I am a naturopathic physician, and I also practice classical homeopathy. Naturopathic physicians, there's actually three types of medical doctors in the US. There's allopathic, which are the MDs, osteopathic or DOs, and then naturopathic or NDs. All three attend 4-year medical school. The initial basic training is as primary care physicians. It's anatomy and physiology and biochemistry and pathology and pharmacology. And, my training includes pharmaceuticals. My training includes vaccines. I'm not anti-pharmaceutical or anti-vax. I think what's more important than what we're using is why we use it. So it's the philosophy, at the heart of naturopathic medicine that I think really differentiates it from the allopathic and the osteopathic approach. There's certainly naturopaths that have a more conventionally geared practice, and there are conventionally trained allopathic and osteopathic doctors that have more holistic or, alternative complementary practices. So I feel like the boundaries are kind of blurring a little bit in good ways. As a naturopath, I went to the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. They just got renamed as the Sonoran University or something, because they're doing more than just naturopathic medicine there now. But the training for me included classical homeopathy, nutrition, diet, lifestyle medicine, Western botanical herbs. I actually have almost 900 hours of Chinese medicine and acupuncture, physical medicine like chiropractic. So it's this really big tool belt in ways to help people. I love classical homeopathy. Homeopathy is its own modality, and it uses very, very diluted plant, animal, or mineral substances that are prescribed for the individual's holistic health picture, not a particular diagnosis or symptom. And so I love classical homeopathy because it's so in alignment with the philosophy at the heart of naturopathic medicine. And I use it in conjunction with the other tools at my disposal in my practice. Homeopathy is a little bit of a tricky one, though, I think, because the term is often misused synonymously with other alternative modalities. Like my mom thought I was in homeopathic med school for the first 2 years, and that's what she'd say. And I'd be like, Mom, it's naturopathic. And so it just gets misused. Or people will say, oh, I've done homeopathy. I took echinacea when I had a cold. That's botanical medicine. It's not really homeopathic. So,
right. So I love that you're breaking this down. So can you describe why diluted plant or mineral medicine works?
well, I can tell you what the philosophy is behind it. The idea is that you're going to match a substance that's creating a symptom picture in a healthy-ish individual to somebody who's suffering with those same symptoms. And so homeo is like pathology. So we're trying to match a medicine that has created a similar symptom picture. So I use as a kind of common example, this is more of an acute than a chronic case, but allium cepa is a remedy made from onions. And if, most people can relate to those kind of symptoms of when you're chopping an onion and your nose and your eyes start watering and you're burning a little bit, right? Some people have allergies that present in a similar fashion, right? Kind of like a hay fever, watery, burny, maybe feel better if you step outside into some fresh air. Allium cepa might be a remedy to consider for them for those acute allergies. So we're matching a remedy that's created a similar symptom picture to the one they're experiencing. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I actually have so many questions around this for you. So I use homeopathy with my daughter has allergies, and the allergist, now will give homeopathy to help treat her. But with that, it's very interesting, and it's juxtaposition when I look at Ayurveda, because in Ayurveda, we take the opposites, right? So like in homeopathy, you're using a diluted form to help maybe boost, and I may be saying this right or wrong, you'll have to correct me, possibly boost the immune system to integrate that information maybe from that plant or mineral. Whereas in Ayurveda, we're taking the opposite quality, like increases like, and we bring in the opposite quality to pacify what we call the doshas. So interesting, like they both work, but one's working with the information possibly from the plant or the mineral, and helping the body. Is it adaptation the right word? Help me understand it, because I'm not this is not my science, but I find it very fascinating.
Well, and it's homeopathy. The medicines are so diluted, and really it's working or influencing the body on an energetic level, which is similar, I think, in ways that Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese medicine is influencing in a energy sort of way. And what I would say though, with Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, it's not working against the body. You're working against these excesses or deficiencies in the energetic realm. Because, right, where like conventional medicine is opposite, but often working against the body. And the problem in the conventional model is we're looking at the symptoms, but we're calling that the illness. The illness is the underlying issue. The symptoms are the outward expression. But the conventional model, it ignores that, and then it says, oh, you're running a fever, I'm going to give you something to suppress your fever. And that's different than looking at somebody who's got an excess of heat or, in their gut. So it's different. And then homeopathy.
So like I'm teasing this out just for my own brain, but okay, so when you said there's a symptom, you bring in a substance that has qualities similar to that symptom. Is that correct?
Yeah, or it's the remedy has influenced and created a similar symptom picture in the healthy individual. Now, I think homeopathy, how it works or how it's working, we're not really able to track or measure this in a like direct energetic way. I mean, in my mind, this has got to be happening on like a quantum physical level because we're
Okay.
diluting these substances to the point that there's almost none or nothing detectable of the original substance. But we still have an influence of this. So what's beautiful about that is it makes the medicines extremely safe. And the
Right.
biggest concern with a homeopathic medicine is that somebody takes one that they don't need. It's not the right one, but it's not going to cause any harm. It's just not
Right.
going to help. And I kind of imagine it like if we're a body and we vibrate when we're in a state of health, a state of balance at a certain level, when we
Mhm.
get sick or illness or a stress knocks us out of balance, right? It's putting our body in a state of dis-ease. We're not vibrating at our most optimal level. And what
Right.
we're trying to do is find a medicine that's created a similar vibratory energy, right, in that state of dis-ease. And so then we add a little nudge of that medicine, and maybe it's like that, a little, equal and opposite reaction. We get a little push, we sometimes see slight aggravations, and then boom, people come back to, their baseline. And then the body's doing the healing. That's the thing with homeopathy. The Dr. Stephen Messer was my, trainer, my primary trainer in med school. He always told us to tell the patient that the remedy's not doing anything. It's the body
Mm.
that's doing the healing. The remedy, he even said catalyst was too strong of a word, but I think that's the way most people could understand it. It's a catalyst to help shift the body into this state of balance where the body heals the way it's supposed to. And then, for me, it's important that the individual has the underlying building blocks for that healing to progress and move forward as fully as possible. So that's where, you might need some fish oil and some vitamin D and, just some of these foundational things. People need to clean up their diet, right? We're, overfed and undernourished. Let's make sure the body has the building blocks to heal.
Wow, it's so fascinating. So on an energetic level, when you use homeopathy, it's so subtle, but what I'm understanding is this catalyst word, like it's so subtle that it nudges the body into a recognition or into like a acknowledgement of pushing it, like, okay, like almost like I want to say your immune system, like almost to kick in your own,
Yes.
right? Your
Yeah.
own immune system to take over.
Yeah, I mean, our bodies always want to be in homeostasis. And so,
Mhm.
there's been a lot of different kind of terms for that energy, right? In Chinese medicine, it's qi, like that's what's trying to bring the body back into a balance to heal. With homeopathy, it's the vis medicatrix, that's the vital force. That's why, I call my practice Vital Force Naturopathy. I guess if you're a Jedi, it's the Force, right? Like, but it's something trying to move and shift the body back into balance. And I always, consider it stress and for sure the mental, emotional stuff, but also physical stresses on the body, spiritual stresses that knock us out of balance. A virus or a bacteria is a physical stress. It's some foreign thing that we're exposed to that starts to kick us out of balance. And then the body puts out symptoms and starts working the immune system trying to get back. Most of us bounce back, pretty well on our own. There's certainly things we can do to help facilitate that happening, when we're sick. But sometimes people get sick and they get stuck out here. And then we're in like a state of chronic disease and illness. And then that's where, we need to pull these pieces together in a more comprehensive and long-term way.
Right. And so in your practice, with the chronic illnesses, do you use homeopathy pretty heavily, like in chronic? Or are you looking mostly at diet and lifestyle? Like, how are you, when
I
people are coming in with some serious chronic conditions or deep autoimmune conditions,
Yeah.
Do you rely heavily on the homeopathy, or how does that look in your practice?
It's definitely one of the pieces of how I help people. I always like to tell patients, if I was limited to helping people with only one thing, homeopathy is the one I would want to use, but I'm not limited. So we do use some supplements. I tend to be a minimalist with the supplements. I'm not trying to just replace all of the potentially, pharmaceutical prescriptions with supplements. Again, let's look at the underlying issue, see why we would want to, need to take a supplement or a pharmaceutical med, and let's address it at the underlying issue. And then I work with everybody for their diet, their exercise, their lifestyle stuff. So I try to help people in a more holistic and comprehensive way pull multiple pieces together at the same time. And it's a twofold. There's kind of two main reasons why I do it. One is often we've got ourselves into trouble because of multiple different areas. We're lacking nutrients. We don't know how to eat. We've got some poor lifestyle habits. And so by starting to look at all of these in a comprehensive and holistic way, we can make shifts in all of them. It kind of takes the pressure off of needing to be perfect in any one of them, right? So many people want to clean up their diet, but that's all they focus on. And so they can get overwhelmed, they can be discouraged, they feel like they're not doing it perfectly, and then they, fall back into old habits. So by looking at these things in a kind of holistic and comprehensive way, it takes off some of the pressure of needing just one thing to fix everything. So that's how I use it. But I absolutely use homeopathy as sort of, a catalyst, a facilitator of all the other things. And what's beautiful about homeopathy in this, again, kind of chronic way is we are looking at the mental, emotional stuff. And so it can help people to shift or work through their own mental roadblocks, their limitations, their anxiety. And that's it's so, it warms my heart when people come in and they're like, oh, Dr. Swanz, I feel more like myself. I feel more at ease. I'm less reactive with my kids or my partner. I'm less triggered at work. I don't have the road rage, whatever, wherever these stresses were manifesting, that starts to level out. And then that often helps with the rest of the lifestyle stuff because we start to feel better in our head, in our spirit.
Right. I like that you said that you don't rely heavily on vitamins and supplements. I think that some people, when they come to natural healing, just like pharmaceuticals, they're looking for, I don't want to say a Band-Aid, but it's like something that's going to give them a quick fix without addressing the diet and the lifestyle. And like you said, not that it doesn't help nudge them in the right direction or give them what they need because there's a deficiency there. But that deficiency is there for a reason. It got there in the first place because the diet and the lifestyle or the exercise program or whatever wasn't in place. And I think when people first come to natural healing, they're looking for that magic bullet. They're looking for a quick fix. And I like that you said as a practitioner that you are looking at this comprehensive approach that's going to help them round out their health picture.
Yeah. And ultimately, I want it to help them for the long term. I want people to, feel empowered and really independent in their own health. So they're not stuck in this conventional model that just keeps throwing more and more prescription meds. And so that's, there's a concern if you're not looking at that big holistic picture that you again just fall back into the old habits, the old ways, or I was taking this supplement and it just didn't continue to help me as much as it was in the beginning. And then we're missing all these other pieces. And so now we're kind of back in a place of suffering again. I want people to be really, empowered for their health and independent of relying on anyone else's healthcare, or having someone else who's having to mandate or dictate what they're doing going forward.
Right. And I think there's a place for longer term care and a practice like yours or mine where, like you were mentioning a supplement, in Ayurveda, there's only a season. You shouldn't take something indefinitely.
Right.
It serves its place naturally within the rhythms of nature or within that time. And so honestly, there's certain things that like, we know we need vitamin D and we know we need magnesium. There's some fundamental like things that we need, but like whether it be homeopathy or an Ayurvedic practice, like, you don't take it indefinitely. It's not like a pharmaceutical where you're on it and you're stuck on it for life. It serves its purpose in a moment in time. But then like a season later, you can revisit or see like what's shifted energetically within you so that you don't have to stay indefinitely, say, on a pharmaceutical drug or live suffering. Like you can work through a season of something and reassess the energetics of your body. I would assume that in your practice, like there's always this kind of reassessment period, if you will.
Absolutely. And that's where, aspects of the conventional physical exams, the blood work, like we still want to do that stuff and look at that and check and see where everyone's at and consider that with the symptom picture and how are we sleeping? How's our energy? How are we pooping? How's our emotional stress? The problem with the pharmaceutical working on the symptom, band-aiding the symptoms, is it compounds and people do become more and more and more dependent on other pharmaceutical medications. And the reality is the more prescription medications you're taking, the less healthy you are. Every time. They don't equal more health. If there was anything that we could take that just made us all healthier, we would all already know about it and every one of us would be taking it. There isn't anything like that.
Yeah, it's in conventional medicine, it's when you have a presentable disease, then there's a treatment, but it doesn't say, oh, if you're pooping, like, it doesn't look healthy. That's like, there's nothing to address the patterns of like looking at poor sleep or looking at your elimination patterns or how does your digestion feel? You wait until something's to the point of a complete pathology or a disease. And like you said, at that point, then you're just chasing the symptoms with a drug that then has side effects that lead to other symptoms that then, you're in this like vicious cycle. And I dream for the day that conventional medicine or like the pharmaceutical industry and would be able to cover, insurance would cover the disease management and prevention side versus the treatment side.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I go back and forth between this idea that like, yeah, things can shift internally and like in health savings account and flex accounts where individuals are, having more power and autonomy with where their health dollar is being spent for themselves. Like, I think that's a step in the right direction. But the reality is the major insurance companies, they allocate about 2% of the budget towards preventative medicine.
Wow.
There's no financial incentive for them to keep people healthy. Everyone makes more money when there's more sick people. And that's a really tough system to be in and actually get healthy. Because if you do, they've lost a customer, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it was originally in traditional Chinese medicine, the doctor was paid when you got well.
yes.
The doctor wasn't paid when you got sick. The doctor was paid when you actually got better. And that's like non-existent. And it's the reason I call this summit the self-healing revolution, because, if we continue on the path that we're on as a country, not even looking at the rest of the world, but just looking here at the United States, we can bankrupt our country with illness. I mean, we're seeing autoimmune conditions in younger adults in their 20s that you wouldn't see until your 40s, possibly before. And, and we're seeing diabetes and pre-diabetic metabolic disorder in children that is unlike anything we've ever seen historically. And then we have the baby boomer population aging now that, they're the largest population ever that's now going to be having to tap into the system for healthcare. And so, I don't know what your feeling is of what happened during COVID, but I believe that it was a wake up call to the masses that, oh my gosh, I actually might have to pay attention to my immune system. I may actually, for the first time, have to care that, that I could get sick because I am at a disadvantage. I'm at a disadvantage, whether it be that I'm diabetic, I'm at a disadvantage, whether it's because I have autoimmune condition or metabolic disorder, or respiratory condition, take asthma or allergies, just like, oh my gosh, like, but if you look at the percentages of the population, I mean, we have over a quarter of the population with autoimmune conditions, we have obesity. So it's like, we're looking at a very small fraction of people that are actually truly healthy.
Yeah.
Like that do not have an autoimmune condition, that do not have metabolic disorder, who do not have. So with that being said, like, how has that shifted for your practice, or have you seen a difference in the collective around how they think about natural healthcare? I mean, what is your take on this?
I do think people are starting to shift. I think, there was, fortunately, pretty early, people were having conversations around vitamin D. And so that started people like recognizing, oh, wow, if I don't have enough vitamins, my health prognosis doesn't look as good if I get sick. Like that's something I think people could wrap their head around. The sad thing for me, and again, I don't know how many people are consciously aware of this, because we don't see it in the way the conventional model is set up. But before COVID, the US was like 37th out of 40 in industrialized nations in overall health outcomes. I mean, we weren't doing well at all. We were like, very, very close to the bottom. After COVID, we're dead last. Like, we have fallen to the bottom of the pack of industrialized health nations, and that's because of how poorly the conventional medical system handled COVID in America. We had a higher mortality rate than all of these other countries, than third world countries. It's really gross, and we can't be looking at this as a success. And the problem is, with the conventional model and with the insurance system, people don't see what the actual cost is. People are detached from the, missed opportunity cost of being sick and what they miss out of in their life. And then because of insurance, people don't really understand how much money they're spending. I mean, I have no idea what an individual COVID vaccine cost, but I'm betting it's probably between $100 and $500 per dose. I don't know if anybody would pay out of pocket for that now, knowing what we know as far as the ability to stop acquiring or transmitting the disease. And we have the same thing with our doctor's visits. When you pay a $30 or $40 copay and you go and see your family practitioner and you get 10 minutes, that might be generous for some. Some doctors might meet with you a little longer than that. But you think, oh, it cost me $40. That's a $400 appointment. That's what the insurance is paying for it. And most people would not fork over $400 for 10 minutes of time and a prescription for a statin with no information about how to eat. It's not worth it. But the system is set up so we don't see that. You don't experience that. And that's problematic.
I want you to go back. You said that we went from the 37th to the last place. Was that because you said was that because the mortality rate? What was that based on?
It's because it's multiple factors, but it's realistically overall, we are less healthy now. We have way more instances of heart disease, and there's all kinds of theories about where and why that's coming from, but heart disease has gotten worse. We had worse concerns about some of the basic screenings, which there's value in screening for breast cancer and prostate cancer and ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. I mean, there's some things so those fell off, some of the tests. And then kids have gotten less healthy. They sat at home. They were less active. They spent more time in front of screens. I think there were some studies showing that it looks like children's IQ might have dropped like 8 to 10 points overall collectively just because they weren't learning. And then the long-term prognosis for these children, and this again doesn't have anything to do with the vaccines, that we have no idea what the long-term implications of those are going to be. I mean, even without that as a potential variable, the kids that, survived through this, they're less healthy than they were at the start of that. So we just handled it really poorly. We didn't embrace any of the treatments that, were there to help people. And it's great. There's so, we could probably spend hours talking about
right, but I do want to speak to, I want to touch on a couple more things. Then I do want to speak about one aspect of it. As far as the kids go, I have a friend who's an occupational therapist, and they're not only just their physical health, but their ability to problem solve or think creatively was lost through the screen time. As an occupational therapist, she's actually having to go in and do a lot of more kinesthetic, like somatic based work to get them back into their bodies, because they're like only in their heads. But that the part of the mind has to be integrated with the body to fully be able to problem solve or be creative. Like there's a kinesthetic component to how the brain works with the body. But I do want to talk about this consciousness piece about COVID, because on the one hand, what you're saying is that, these markers for our health actually got worse, which I believe they did. On the other hand, I believe there is this question, this collective question, is why, I called it self-healing revolution. There's this collective question of like, wow, where are we? Not coming from the pharmaceutical companies, not coming from conventional medicine, but coming from people themselves who are inevitably feeling worse, like, isolation, not being physically active, not being around their coworkers, the amount of stress that they underwent. So I believe that on the one hand, we are in a possibly state that's even worse. But sometimes just like health, right? Like we have to suffer a bit more before we actually care to get better. But I do have this belief, and possibly it's only mine, that there's this collective shift in thinking around, wow, I don't know that I'm safe by just getting sicker or by not doing anything with my health. And that's what I guess I'm asking you. Have you seen, for the people that actually show up at your doorstep that may be new clients, do you see this question around like, where are we collectively at in our health? And like, because I think if we are at this place of like, wow, we really have to be proactive, if there's a shift in consciousness, hopefully the self-healing revolution is like truly there's a shift in consciousness, then it behooves us that we'll have to take matters into our own hands and actually pay out of pocket, which unfortunately, is not a great place to be when you obviously don't have a lot of money, right? Like we have limited resources. But do you feel, or at all, that there's been any shift in the way that people are beginning to think about their health? Or do you see, what are you experiencing on the ground?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a shift here. In my experience, most of the people that are coming in to work with me are at a place where the discovery has happened for them because they've been working through the conventional system, and they're at a place where they're fed up with doing more and more pills or having more and more procedures. Or, for example, a woman recently who, I'm working with, she had she had like a lap band put on her stomach to lose weight. She was a diabetic. She lost weight. Her blood sugars got better. It changed how she was eating. She's been eating the same way, hasn't put all the weight back on, but now her blood sugars are going high again. And now she's having to get back on her diabetes medication. And so she came back in, and I just told her, I was like, you didn't change anything about how you were eating. You shrunk your stomach, you lost some weight. The size of your stomach was not the problem. It's what you've been eating, and what you were eating that was causing the weight is also contributing to the blood sugar and the insulin spikes. And so we're going to, teach her how to eat for the long term and support her for getting better. But it's the individual has to come to that place of self responsibility. I think the concern with like the COVID drama was we still it fed into that. It's everyone else's problem. It's I'm going to yell at that person because they don't have a mask on, even though I'm morbidly obese and had McDonald's and a Coke for lunch today. I'm going to blame the person without the mask. It's so I still think people, there's a resistance to wanting to be responsible for our own health. And I think there's some fear around it because people, it is difficult and it is a struggle to make these kind of changes. I don't eat perfectly. I don't always go to sleep when I know I should. I don't always exercise when I know I should. But we have to be able to move past our own self-limitations to start making these changes. And yes, when you start to make these changes, you can get better, and then you got to keep doing it. Because that's the thing. It's not just that people are afraid to do it in the short term. Then it's like the fear about maintaining it for the long term. But it does get easier, and we can cultivate more healthy habits and really find out what's working for us and not working for us. And that's how we sustain it. It's always going to cost us more to be sick than it does to be healthy.
I love that you said that. Yeah.
Always.
I love that. You said two things that I think are really important. Like you talked about that self-empowerment piece, and then the next layer, that's like the self-responsibility piece. And then I think the third layer is that, you, like you said, like people look at the cost of natural healthcare and they think, wow, well, my insurance isn't coming in this, but like you said, they're not seeing the true cost of like a doctor's visit, which is like possibly $400, and then whatever pharmaceutical drugs you take on top of that. And then the lifetime, like, it's not just that you take that for a month, but you may be on a pharmaceutical drug for months, years, or a lifetime. And like you said, it's going to cost way more money to be sick than it is to be healthy. Like you said, the cost of even missed opportunity of work or lifestyle itself.
It's end of life stuff. For a lot of people, the last 6 to 18 months of their life are spent in and out of hospitals, in intensive cares. The majority of the money ever spent on their health is spent in those last 6 to 18 months. And that's insane. That's money that could have been spent earlier in their life for preventative and quality of care. Somebody who's 65 and needs to go into like an assisted living because of health complications, it's going to be $5,000 to $8,000 minimum a month for them to be in there. And if they're 65, they might need that kind of care for the next 20 years. It's astronomical what it's costing us. And again, that's not even considering the quality of life. It's not even considering the family impact, who has to now, or has to, but wants to go visit mom or their aunt in the nursing home every week and is missing work and, driving them to and from doctor's appointments. It's a toll. I had a sister who died from complications from a chronic illness, and the last 2 years of her life were miserable. She had no quality of life. She suffered. And my mom and brother and I, she was completely dependent on us for her care. And we sat with her in the intensive care unit when her heart took its last beat, and nobody should have to go through that. And we don't have to. There's ways to make changes there, but it starts at home. It starts in our own heart, in our own spirit, in our own head.
Yeah. And I love, like, even looking at the end of life, but like the quality of life. So, I don't think that people understand sometimes like how limited they feel until they start to feel better. It's like, oh my gosh, like, wow, when I actually feel better, like I have so much more vitality and capacity to live more and do more. And I call it like being limitless or boundless, like where you have like untapped energy reserves. So you don't get like I talked a lot during COVID about this concept in Ayurveda is called ojas. It's like deep immunity, deep strength, and vitality. What happens is, for those people who have compromised immune systems are the ones that are going to get hit back, possibly be down for weeks or have long COVID, versus somebody who is already eating well, having great diet and lifestyle, sleeping well. Their ojas is stronger. I got COVID. I was sick, like I had the flu one day. By the second day, I was taking naps. By the third day, I was back up as if I was normal. The only thing is maybe a week, like running and playing soccer with my son, I could just feel a little bit in my chest. But by the second week, it was as if it was non-existent. But you take somebody who has deep autoimmune or overweight or respiratory issues, and then you, like you mentioned, that quality of life, like factor is huge. It's like you can't even live optimally, not even thinking about end of life, care. So, so like, it's like, that's the motivating factor, right? Like the amount should be.
It should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
vitality, I mean, that's huge, again, it's not just right the how many years you live, but how much are you living in those years, right? And the vitality, the energy, and it's crazy because there's people. I mean, I have a patient who's 82 who's been on no meds, and she drives and comes to her appointments, and she's a trip. She's, and I have some patients. Yeah, and then you get some people. And then you get people who are in their 50s who, they can barely get out of bed, and the quality of life. And our society is set up to allow people to stay stuck there. And and again, we have to pull ourselves out, and that's hard.
Well, and I think that we've been taught that we're supposed to age and suffer, and that getting in your 60s or 70s should just be this hardship.
It's inevitable.
But then, like you said, for somebody who's very healthy, they could live into their 80s, 90s, or even like the centennials, like in the blue zones, being in their hundreds and still having full vitality. But this concept, like, doesn't even exist here, that you could live in your 80s and be fully resilient and healthy and optimal, like health optimization, which is really like, I believe you turned 45. I was like looking through your bio and information online. Are you 45 this year? Yeah, I turned 45 too. I turned 45 this month. I'm not 45 yet, but I turned 45 this month. And like, I'm really looking at, anti-aging and longevity and health optimization, and to the point that what we can offer, like what natural healers or people in the natural medicine world can offer is, that anti-aging piece that you can't get in conventional medicine. So can you speak about that some, like how, when you do these things, that like there is an anti-aging component, there is an ability to live health optimization is available to you.
Absolutely. And, we age in this chronological way, right? So you'll be 45. I've lived 45 years and some months after that. And that's chronological age, but absolutely our physiological and biochemical age has everything to do with what's going on inside, and with the mitochondria and the cell's ability to produce ATP. And my sister was 28 when she died. She looked older than my mother at that time. And that's because, but she was on dialysis, and she had 2 toes amputated, and she was legally blind, and, she had suffered. And so that's absolutely the case. And I have patients who have turned their health around, and they're like, wow, Dr. Swanz, my friends keep telling me it looks like I'm getting younger. And they are getting younger at this cellular level. That is what and so anti-aging is something that is possible on that level. And I don't think we should be afraid of growing older, as long as we're growing wiser in that process, because we need more of that too. We need more wisdom in elders changing stuff and influencing stuff, and telling people, no, this isn't okay to keep going in the direction we've been going. And so I hope we do see more and more of that. And again, that's a individual's journey and responsibility.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast about wisdom teachers, like that. If we have this aging population, right, and we have people that have this knowledge and then they're not available to us, it's a deficit in and of itself. If we have this great wisdom and knowledge, I mean, not just take health out of the equation, but just take a mathematician or something, and then they're not able to like, because a lot of that, the later part of the years is leaving your legacy. Like leaving
Right.
your legacy is able to like transmit that knowledge to younger generations. So that in and of itself is something that we lose if we have an aging population who's not able to leave that knowledge, that legacy behind in the way that people that are vital, they retire, they volunteer their time, they write amazing books, they contribute back to society in ways that if we don't honor this later stage of life, we lose out. I mean, even like, if I know you've probably studied the blue zones, like there's a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and integration of different cycles of life, sharing knowledge and time with one another.
I really appreciate this guy, Stephen Jenkinson. He's a Canadian like sociologist. He's got a divinity degree from Harvard, and he talks about elders a lot and wrote a book called Come of Age that's really beautiful about this. And one of the things he talked about is, we're a society that values productivity and competency, which are things that decline as we age. So like the elders have lost a place in our society because those are the only ways we're keeping score. How much more can you produce and how much more can you add to this bottom line? It's completely neglecting the wisdom and the knowledge and the cultural connections. And the result is taking these people who are less competent and less able to produce and congregating them together in these nursing homes. And then COVID was this like wake up call of like, look at how these people are being hurt by how they've been treated in this acute way with this illness, but it's really bigger than that. It's more of a chronic problem. And again, I hope we can start to shift that. And I hope people can feel well enough that they're not needing all this assisted living. And there's nothing wrong with being in a community. I've got some aunts and uncles that have moved into like 50, and they love the community. They love the social atmosphere and stuff. So we need to figure out how to do better in the areas where things aren't working for us right now.
Yeah, one of the most beautiful models I've seen is where they take people that are in senior living homes, and then they take toddlers like in preschool or kindergarten, and they pair up the people that are in the senior living home with the toddlers, because that full cycle of life, like the enjoyment, because like think about somebody who's elderly, they can be fully present with a child who needs another human being to be present with them when the parent's off working and unable to be present, Like there's so many beautiful things that we could be doing if we put our minds and hearts to it. Well, I've so appreciated our time together. I'm just curious, like I want to ask you one more question before we end. What is your health practices, lifestyle personally look like in your own life? So like what are some of the main things that you do on a daily basis to keep like vibrant and vital and healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I think some consistency is really important, especially around the sleep schedule stuff. Like, it's just amazing to me how many people on the work day will wake up at 5:36 and then want to sleep till 10 or 11 on the weekends. And that's a big shift in that internal, circadian rhythm, our body's internal clock. So for me, just being really consistent with like the morning wake up and the evening bedtime. It doesn't mean you don't stay up later some nights, because it's a date night or we're watching a show or, whatever, but you still try to get up early. And I'm a big fan of bookending the day, having a consistent morning routine and a consistent evening routine. I get up and do some gratitude practices and some kind of like meditative prayer stuff. I'm big on just, I'm a knowledge accumulator. So I'm constantly reading books and listening to podcasts. And one of the things I figured out where I was kind of slacking a little bit was putting some of this into action. I'm the kind of person who wants more and more information, but will sometimes procrastinate putting things into place. So I've been working on taking more action and doing that stuff, journaling. I take some basic supplements. I mean, fish oil, vitamin D, I think most everybody, can benefit from. And I'm a big fan too of some of the, like cold shower, as you're getting out of the shower, like just some basic kind of hydrotherapy practices can be really valuable. I like to go outside when it's cold and do some stretching and, breathing in the cold air. And the other thing I've really been focusing on lately is breathing. Trying to slow down, be more, present in my body, more present on the earth. And just because I get excited and I'm passionate about things, so I can find myself and just kind of slowing down and being more present with myself and with patients and with my loved ones. So it's been good.
Yeah, you're a kindred spirit. I'm the same. I believe so much in the circadian rhythm and the cycles of nature and how it affects. I think that people have no idea about even circadian science. So that's like a great place to start for sure. And honoring that rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've appreciated your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. And each of our speakers is offering a free gift. Can you tell people what you would like to offer during the summit?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'd like to offer just a 15-minute call that you can schedule. We've got a link that you'll put in the information and people can click on that and put a quick 15-minute call on my calendar. And if you want to talk about this holistic approach or homeopathy or what you're dealing with, I do have a first aid, homeopathy for first aid handout that I'd be happy to send anybody who is interested in that and just, applying it at home so they can schedule a call and share some info and we can talk. And I'd be happy to be part of anyone's health team.
All right. I so appreciate our time together. It's been wonderful. And thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks, Paige. It was great seeing you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.